All right, thank you all for joining us for a meeting of Vermont's Environmental Justice Advisory Council and Interagency Committee. Next slide, please. Welcome again. Next slide. Thank you. Here are our community agreements. We'll just have folks read them silently to themselves, and then if you agree, if this feels in alignment to you, just give us a thumbs up when you're done. Cool. I think we got thumbs up. We can go to the next slide, please. I don't think we have quorum right now to officially approve. Yeah. But we'll still go over what we're going to do today. So we're going to do a Vermont EJ law review of this year, 2025. And then there'll be like 15-20 minutes for questions. And then after that, each group will meet separately to talk through some things. And then after that, you'll come together and meet collectively. We'll take a break, do public comment, and then we'll have a final debrief where we'll talk through any decisions that you all made in either your individual groups or your collective discussions, and then talk through any administrative next steps that need to come out of that to support you next year. And then after that, we just have a couple updates to share with you. So that's what it looks like. Other than that, let's get started with the presentation, and then whenever we get quorum, we can go back to approve the agenda. I think I'm going to pass it to Julia to get us started.
Awesome. Thanks, Kim. Yeah, so as you guys know, it's December. Somehow the year has gone by so fast and we're basically at the end of it. So what we wanted to do today is take some time to review all the really cool achievements that we've made in 2025 and just also, prep us to start thinking about what 2026 is going to look like. And we'll talk more about that during our meeting next week. But so today, we're going to talk about 2025, and this year was really intended to build the foundation that we'll then use to implement the EJ law in 2026 and beyond. As you know, we've done a lot of foundation building this year. And so today what we're going to cover is some of the deliverables and modes of influence that we worked on this year and give you guys a reminder of what it is that we've achieved through each of those modes of influence. We'll be able to highlight the ways that the Advisory Council and the Interagency Committee contributed and really helped advance those items. And some of the outcomes we'd like to see from this part of the agenda is for IAC and AC members to understand the milestones and achievements that were made in 2025 to implement the law, and then to also understand how the foundation built in 2025 is going to inform next year's work. So hopefully this will be a fun celebratory conversation, and we'll get lots out of it. So really quick, just a reminder, as you all know, there are 5 modes of influence under the EJ law. There are 4 of them sort of represented here because the mapping tool and cumulative environmental burden rulemaking kind of go together, but we kind of broke them up by deliverable so that throughout this presentation so that we could get into a little bit of detail, especially on mapping. But so today we're going to review what's been achieved in terms of environmental benefits, community engagement, the EJ mapping tool, cumulative environmental burden rulemaking, and annual agency reporting. So we're going to look at each area and review these deliverables together. So first and foremost is environmental benefits. As you're all aware, the first deliverable that is under this area of work is the environmental benefits spending guidance. So as the lead covered agency under the law, ANR was tasked with drafting this guidance document to support covered agencies in the creation of the baseline spending reports. So this guidance set the foundation for the completion of each of the subsequent deliverables that are going to come under this mode of influence starting in 2026. The EBSG was due September 15th of this year. And as previously said, it's going to help us to build the baseline spending reports. What are the baseline spending reports? They ask each covered agency to take a snapshot of their investments in environmental benefits during a defined 3-year period, which you can find in the guidance. And this snapshot will help the covered agencies understand where investments are currently going and will support environmental benefits related deliverables after the completion of the reports. So throughout 2026, 2027, and beyond. As you're all aware, ever since the guidance was complete, these reports are currently under development in different stages depending on the covered agency, but ultimately they'll all be due on February 15th of this year. So I think I'm going to pass it to Kim to talk a little bit more about what we've achieved so far this year with these deliverables.
Thank you. Yeah, here's our timeline. So the EBSG task group, or the Environmental Benefit Spending Guidance Task Group, developed draft 1 between the end of 2024 into February of this year. And then our unit hosted the EBSG feedback sessions across, I think, 7 agencies. Those were really great. And then in April, the advisory council reviewed, and then also provided feedback on the guidance. Then from July to August, we hosted the public comment period. And then, August until now and moving into next year, the covered agencies are working on their reports. And then the actual guidance was due on September 15th. Next slide, please. So we just wanted to highlight a few things. So the Environmental Benefit Spending Guidance Task Group was made up of folks from our unit and the Advisory Council and Interagency Committee. The feedback session materials were reviewed by both the Advisory Council and the Interagency Committee. And then the Advisory Council provided feedback, like we said, in that meeting in April. And then also the Advisory Council provided some great consultation on the public materials to support the public comment period, and then also our presentation. So thank you for that. Next slide. And then here are just some highlights for the spending reports. So these were also discussed in the feedback sessions. The interagency discussed these reports in the September 17 meeting. We've already provided some one-on-one technical assistance for agencies who've requested it. And then the additional TA is underway. I'm gonna pass it over to Juliet to talk through community engagement.
Cool, thanks, Kim. So that's a lot of good information about environmental benefits. We're gonna switch our focus to community engagement, which is another area of work under the EJ law. As you're all aware, the community engagement area of work is really focusing on improving the ways that we provide meaningful participation to members of the public under the EJ law. And the first deliverable related to this area of work was the core principles of community engagement, which technically under the law, because we had a 2-year deadline extension, was due in July of 2025, but we actually finished it way back in 2024 because we're so ahead. And we work so efficiently. So you'll all recall that's a really good document that you all worked on. So thank you all for that. The next thing that we're really setting our sights towards, and we spent a lot of time talking about in November, is the community engagement plans. As you know, covered agencies have to build community engagement plans that will describe how each agency is going to engage EJFPs as it evaluates new and existing activities and programs. It's also going to describe how they're going to provide meaningful participation in compliance with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act. They have to be informed by the core principles, and they also have to be developed in consultation with the advisory council. So we're really looking forward to setting our sights towards that work, which is due in July of 2027. But we did begin thinking about these plans this year. So just some quick highlights because, the time spent on this deliverable, we're still in the beginning of the community engagement plan deliverable thought process. Some highlights from this year include that the IAC discussed the core principles of community engagement and community engagement plans way back in June. They were able to identify needs, opportunities, and priorities during the November IAC meeting. And then we got together twice, or actually just once as a full group in November to talk about community engagement between the AC and IAC, where the advisory council provided consultation on the community engagement plans. And then the advisory council and interagency committee formalized a community engagement working group during that meeting. So that's really exciting. And we're looking forward to starting that work as soon as possible, but probably thinking likely in the new year. So that's really, really exciting and good work. I'm going to now just switch gears to think about the mapping tool. So we've covered environmental benefits and community engagement. Now we're going to start thinking about another deliverable, just the EJ mapping tool. As you all know, as the lead covered agency under the Vermont Environmental Justice Law, ANR is responsible for creating and maintaining the state's environmental justice mapping tool, which has the main purposes of identifying environmental justice focused populations throughout the state and mapping environmental burdens and environmental benefits. So this mapping tool is something that we really started making a lot of advancements on this year. And so as a reminder, this year we determined, and also through public meetings in 2024, that this project of the mapping tool would require interdisciplinary work to be able to meet the needs of the law. So as you all know, we developed an approach to bring on a GIS contractor as well as a community engagement contractor to collaborate on the development of the tool. And that those advancements in terms of the contracting were all made this year. We're really excited about it. Quick reminder, the deadline for the mapping tool is January 1st, 2027. And I'm going to pass it to Kim to go into a little bit more detail about what happened with this year.
Thanks, Juliet. All right, so from 2024, end of 2024 until February, we were developing the GIS request for a proposal. And then from February to March, the Advisory Council and Interagency Committee reviewed the GIS RFP. We released the RFP in March, and then in April, we received our proposals. And then from July until September, we hosted our GIS selection committee, which included advisory council members and interagency committee members. And then in September, the selection committee chose Stone Environmental through a completely blind process where all of the, identifiable information was redacted from each proposal. And then from September until December, we're working with the Agency of Digital Services to formalize the statement of work that's going to help guide Stone's work. Thank you, Juliet. So now we're going to just look at the mapping tool timeline from the community engagement side of things. So from March until to June, we developed the community engagement RFP, maybe starting a little earlier too. From July through August, the advisory council actually reviewed the community engagement RFP in the executive session. And then in August, we released the community engagement RFP. And then we received all of our proposals in October. And then our selection committee, which is also, again, made up of advisory council and interagency committee members, we're in the process of selecting the contractor. Okay, and then I'm just going to pass it back to Juliet to talk through some highlights.
Cool, thanks. So the highlights for this mapping tool project from this year is that our unit was able to request some pre-draft feedback from both the advisory council and the interagency committee in these RFP processes, and the feedback that you all provided really helped shape the direction of these of the RFPs. Additionally, the GIS and community engagement selection committees were a huge success, and the community engagement selection committee continues to be a huge success since it's still working on determining a final contractor for community engagement. And as Kim mentioned, those selection committees have representation from both the AC and the IAC. They were two distinct groups that had distinct representation from each bodies. And so we're really grateful for those of you who are willing to spend some extra time with us to make this happen. And then finally, one last highlight, advisory council members were able to review the final community engagement RFP in an executive session a couple of months ago, if you recall. And that was a really enlightening and productive conversation. So we appreciate you all for participating in that. All right, we're coming towards the end of our highlights reel, or our year in review. We're over halfway through. The next area of work that we want to talk about is rulemaking. So this was something that was recently introduced to you all last month. So for those of you who were not at the November 17th meeting, this may feel like new information. So I'm going to kind of walk through it a little slowly. And if there are questions, or if folks need a refresher, you're always welcome to ask questions at the end. We'll get to it. But as you're aware, one of the key deliverables under the EJ law is something called cumulative environmental burden rulemaking. This is a new deliverable, and basically, as again, the lead covered agency under the law, ANR, in consultation with you all in the Advisory Council and the IAC, will adopt rules, which means that they're going to impact the way that our agency does our work, to define and consider cumulative environmental burdens as we make decisions and take actions. The rules will also inform how the public and covered agencies consider cumulative environmental burdens. This rule is not just going to impact ANR, but it'll impact all of the agencies under the law. It's a big undertaking. And then finally, it's going to inform how to use the EJ mapping tool, which is going to be a key part of decision making in general. So this is something that we're all very new to. It's something we'll continue conversations on in the next year, but we wanted to just acknowledge that this is something that we've started to make some progress on this year, albeit very recently with the full group. So the deadline for this rule is July of 2027. And as you can see, the timeline for this looks a little sparse, and that's because a lot of the work that happened on this deliverable this year has been internal at ANR, our unit working with our legal team to develop technical assistance materials, understand the deliverable ourselves, so that we can then go to you guys and give you as much information as you need. So last month, we were able to introduce the deliverable to you all with the help of Rachel Stevens, our Associate General Counsel. And I'll pass it to Kim.
Thank you. So I'm going to talk about some other highlights here. As Juliet mentioned, we, first ourselves, we consulted with our Office of General Counsel. They supported us in, understanding our legal interpretation and understanding the rulemaking requirements. And then the Office of General Counsel provided some introductory materials. And then we also use this to prepare materials for our internal engagement with ANR's Agency of Natural Resources Environmental Justice Network. So we consulted them, and that was helpful to also inform how we introduce this deliverable to you all at the November 17 meeting. And then I'll also just add one more thing, which is that the discussion we had about the environmental justice focus populations in that executive session also is going to inform this deliverable as well. All right, so annual reporting. The Vermont EJ law requires the covered agencies to report annually on the complaints they've received pertaining to environmental justice and civil rights issues. This deliverable is designed to encourage transparency and accountability from the covered agencies. So the deliverable associated with this is the civil rights and EJ complaint reports, which were due on March 15th of this year. And then after the covered agencies submit their annual reports, the advisory council has the opportunity to review and then provide recommendations to these reports. So this also allows the advisory council to use their expertise and then, to support the covered agencies in improving their procedural responses to the complaints. And then here is the timeline. So of course, the deadline for submitting the complaint summary reports was March 15th, as I shared. The advisory council provided recommendations on May 15th of this year. And then from May to August, the IAC develops a work plan to improve the civil rights and EJ complaint intake systems. And then the IAC submitted their response to the advisory council on August 15th. And then I'm going to pass it back to Juliet just to share some highlights about this.
All right. Thanks, Kim. So last but not least, some quick highlights about annual reporting from 2025. As you may recall, early this year, our unit hosted some office hours to support covered agencies in their reports, and as well also some office hours to support advisory council members who were interested in submitting a response to the interagency committee's reports. Advisory council members Mariana Sears and Rich Holshoe submitted recommendations to the interagency committee. I think that was back in May. And then the interagency committee was able to discuss the civil rights and environmental justice complaint reports and the recommendations that they received from the advisory council back in June, and actually drafted a work plan that has been discussed internally and will soon be shared with the advisory council. There's more work to be done on that, but just want to note that a lot of progress has been made this year that we're really excited to share with you. So I think that that's all that we want to share with you today in terms of a recap. I hope that that was both quick and fun, as well as illustrative of all of the honestly crazy work that we've done this year. I think we've all achieved a lot. Are there any questions or any reflections that folks want to share from that brief little recap? I'll stop sharing my screen so that I can see folks.
There are two questions in the chat, Juliet, if you haven't seen them, but I wanted to ask if we got people engaged in the period for public engagement after the, let me see if I can say it, spending benefit guidance thingy. There was a period of public comment. Did anybody submitted comments, or did we get any engagement from the general public? If you remember, I'm just curious. Thanks.
Sure, yeah, we can share again about that. So, yeah, so we had virtual meetings and then we also had an in-person meeting. And so the attendance, like those meetings were small, but the folks who came were extremely engaged. So they ended up being like very small, intimate conversations about the guidance. And yeah, so we received a lot of great feedback verbally in those meetings. And a lot of that was able to, resulted in some changes in the guidance itself. And then we also received, I want to say it's 14 written comments, but I can't remember exactly. But those comments were extremely robust, and also very helpful. So, it took a lot of time to get those resources together. The task group worked really hard in supporting on that. But those materials went to good use. And then we are working, or we had started working on the responsiveness summary. For that, it took a long time for us to just kind of take all the information in and digest it and also review it with our legal team. And so we'll be continuing to work on that in a little bit here. Abby?
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I was just curious, you mentioned one of the purposes of the cumulative environmental burden rulemaking was to inform how to use the mapping tool. I'm just curious about what that maybe setup is as the contract for the mapping tool development is underway, if there's just what the communication is, since that rulemaking component is so new to most of us. Maybe is A&R general counsel engaged in talking with the consultant or the contractor? Maybe other things too, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I guess I'll defer to Carla because she's running point on this and also might just have more perspective on timing, or maybe can just speak more in general to how the deliverables informs the mapping tool.
Thank you, Kim. And thank you, Abby, for your question. I'm always so glad to get questions about these things because it really gives an opportunity to communicate things that are otherwise kind of in the weeds. So the good thing is that these two deliverables are going to be advanced simultaneously. The creation of the mapping tool with the engagement of the community engagement contractor, which we will very, very soon, maybe tomorrow, select, and the GIS contractor, which is Stone Environmental. So that work, as you know, will take place very robustly next year, and the cumulative burden rule as well. So in the work planning, it was included that the community engagement contractor and the GIS contractors would create a report on how to use the tool. and take into consideration some of the outputs required in law under the cumulative burden rule making process. So what all of that means is that the way that this has been envisioned is that as we do the work alongside the contractors, they will produce reports that will help us inform that portion of the cumulative burden rule. And in the statute, it appears as the third prong of things that the agency is asked to do, and that is to communicate to members of the public how to utilize the tool. So it is envisioned that the GIS contractor and the community engagement contractors are going to help us build some of that through their engagements and through the implementation of the contracts that we have with them. So definitely it was already anticipated that this was going to happen like this. So we lined up the work to flow like that. But yes, and then your question about general counsel and legal is, yes, we regularly meet with our general counsel's office, and we are in continuous conversation with them regarding many things, from statutory interpretation to scoping considerations to involvement of other agencies and the advisory council. So these processes are not running independently. Rather, there are constant iterations between all of the groups involved.
Carla, that's helpful.
Go ahead, Janet.
Just, I wonder, maybe some clarification. So the rulemaking isn't going to tell people how to use the environmental justice mapping tool. The two contractors are going to work on guidelines for using the tool. The rulemaking is for defining what environmental burdens are, and right? I mean, the rulemaking isn't about the mapping tool.
Thanks for that question. So the rulemaking process in the law actually includes the mapping tool. And that is the third prong. So it basically states that the rule will inform how the public and the covered agencies will consider cumulative burdens and use the mapping tool. So it is included in that deliverable in statute. So those are the three tasks.
Carla, I just put that slide in the chat that we shared earlier today. Do you want us to share our screen and talk about that a little bit more? Would that be helpful, you think? And then also, Bob, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, thanks for putting that back. I mean, I see the mapping tool as a tool that will be used to do this rulemaking, but that the rulemaking isn't about how to use the tool. So let me see that.
Carla, correct me if I'm wrong, but Janet, I think maybe the distinction here is that because the rule asks or is trying to show covered agencies how to consider cumulative environmental burdens, and because the map will map burdens showing in like a layered fashion, the tool is intended to be a tool for decision making. And then in that case would inform how covered agencies consider environmental burdens. So I think that that's where that distinction is that the tool is a key part of, you know, following through with the rule, if that makes sense.
It's a key part. Maybe I'm being a little too pedantic, but I don't think that we're doing rule making about how to use the mapping tool. And I think the mapping tool is mapping environmental justice focused populations, and it will be used to do the analysis that would look at cumulative environmental burdens that we have to look at.
Maybe the analysis is what the rulemaking will help us
Yeah,
guide how we do it.
right.
Well, this is one of, I really appreciate this discussion. And Bob, I see your hand up. What I would like to say is that the mapping tool will be part of the rule making process in terms of how it touches or where it touches on the cumulative burden rule. The rulemaking process is not to instruct how to use the tool itself, but rather how to utilize the component that involves the cumulative evaluation. And so that is what the contractors are going to help us with, right? They will identify with the input of the advisory council and engagement throughout Vermont, identify what indicators or indices will make it to or are important in the tool. And then as part of the rulemaking process, we will include how the cumulative burden evaluation may be supported by the mapping tool. So it's not the central aspect of the rule, but it is a component of the rule as it pertains to and touches on burden evaluation. Bob?
Thank you. Yeah. So just continuing that discussion, I need more of a tangible example to try and understand where this is going. So if we were to look at environmental releases, be they through the air, through the water, say we had a bunch of either farms or industrial plants along the Connecticut River and their waste stream is going into the river and polluting it above whatever the limits are allowable for whatever the toxin or element is that they're measuring. Somebody would have to know those excursions in order to put those on a map. So if we have an industrial polluter, we would have to know their air plume on the times that they're exceeding their limits. Where does that go across the state of Vermont? And it's only in knowing those multitude of potential environmental burden waste streams, we would have to catalog all those and then overlay that as a layer of the environmental focused populations to know who's being touched by all those various. That's how I see it, but maybe that's not the intent. But I don't know any other way other than someone has to go around quantifying what are all the excursions that constitute an environmental burden and putting that on a map. You would have to have people looking at every type of potential waste stream that exceeds a certain limit. Just thinking out loud, not understanding with any clarity. But that's how I would see that. Thank you.
Exactly. And that's why this first iteration will not contain all of the imaginable or existing environmental burdens, but rather we will need to prioritize with the data that's available. And also this speaks to the comment that one of the counselors shared regarding permits. So all of that, Bob, and this is the first iteration. and we will need to prioritize depending on what kind of data we have access to and the accuracy and validity of the data. But in theory, we would have a tool that has overlays, and the overlays may be varied and will be varied. It could incorporate like an overlay that informs transportation. It could have another overlay on industrial sites. It could have, another overlay on health disparities. And then when making a certain evaluation, an agency will consider, the overlays depending on how the rule is developed. And then they would make a determination based on the assessment made utilizing the tool and the burdens that are identified in the rule as a result of engagement and data assessment.
Okay, any other questions about this or maybe a different deliverable?
If I may say something here really quickly, to sort of like reemphasize how important it is to get clarity on things that may be murky for you, or you would want more elaboration. The idea is that 2025 served an important purpose for many of the deliverables that we will be advancing very robustly in 2026. So the materials that were provided and the conversations that were had were intended to serve as that foundation, and that knowledge that's built and shared amongst the groups will be utilized in 2026. So the expectation is that when we start engaging around the certain deliverables, that we will not need to provide as an extensive introductory conversations as we've had in the past, but rather we will take things topically so that we can, use our time together efficiently. So if there are any questions with regards to any of the materials that were shared just now or in the past year, this would be a great opportunity for us to clarify any of those or provide additional materials. And if needed, as usual, we're more than glad to meet with any of you individually to go over those foundational pieces.
Janet and then Abby.
So now I've forgotten the timeline for the mapping tool development. But I presume that the environmental the interagency committee will be pulled in at various aspects or various times as they're developing these different data layers for the tool for input.
Yeah, definitely. So just another kind of recap is that both the advisory council and the interagency committee were written into both RFPs. So both the contractor, well, Stone, and then whoever the community engagement contractor will be, you will all have the opportunity to collaborate with them, communicate with them, and depending on we don't know what the meeting structure will look like yet. But I think something that we've asked before and something that would be really helpful for you all to assess going into January is how much time you personally might want to contribute to this work, or maybe there are topics that you like, for example, Janet, if you're really interested in the data and the layering and things like that, then we can work to pull you in, you know, when those things are happening. If folks are really interested in being a part of the community engagement side of things, like there's a lot of space for that. So just want to make it clear that that's an expectation that's written into the RFPs, and the proposals reflect that expectation.
So, remind me though, what's the rulemaking deadline? Was it July 2027 or 8?
January 1, 27.
January 1, 27. Wow. And is that a deadline to have a finished rule, or is that a deadline to LCAR?
Final rule.
Wow, that
I'm
doesn't
sorry,
seem.
I thought you were asking about the mapping tool, Janet. My notes show that the mapping tool is due January 1st, 2027. The cumulative environmental burden rulemaking is due July 1st, 27.
Okay, that's better. I was a little worried because the rulemaking process isn't quick. And so I'll just say that the LURB is really busy throughout this period trying to implement Act 181, and I definitely want to be involved, and maybe more so in the development of the tool, because the tool is going to be identifying who our EJ focus populations are, and it's going to be identifying what those environmental burdens are. And I feel like it does, you know, this body, the two bodies together are the bodies that should be overseeing that kind of policy determination. So I'm hoping that I have the bandwidth to stay on top of things, but if we could, you know, if we could get regular updates or regular timelines as they are modified, so that we can keep abreast of where we can fit ourselves in, that would be really helpful.
Sounds good. Bob?
Yeah, one last comment and then I'll stay quiet. In the current state of Vermont, PCB testing in all schools was mandated by law, for which the remediation, mitigation, or abatement was not funded adequately and remains woefully underfunded going forward. Yet the mandate to do the PCB testing is still out there. Just taking that as an example, we could spend a great deal of effort mapping that out, understanding what focus populations are impacted, just to come to the conclusion we have no resources to deal with it at all. Much like I just got done doing a school-wide facilities assessment for the whole state, it ends up being like $8 billion over 20 years, and state legislators say, you think we have money for that? So while the initiative in and of itself is wonderful, it has to be paired in unison with the same sort of focus on how to come up with a sustainable funding model to address the environmental burdens that we ourselves are saying are unacceptable. So I reiterate, re-echo everything I've been saying. While we're doing all this work, there have to be backdoor discussions saying we're following the law. You who make the law, put your collective minds together to come up with funding streams to deal with that which you're telling us we must deal with. Because to go through all this rulemaking and all of this analysis is wonderful. But if it just ends up with data that goes on a shelf that we then talk about next year and the year after, acknowledge it's important, but don't fund it, it just is performative. So I think that's really key. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing, Bob.
Yeah, Bob, what I have a different question, but I just want to like build on what you're saying is what I think I'm understanding your comment to be is kind of the investment and implementation capacity across the covered agencies. So yes, build the tool, conduct the rulemaking, and then where's the implementation capacity to ensure that state agencies are able to kind of like do what's being asked. So yeah, I feel a little bit of that even on like the environmental benefit spending reporting kind of proportionality piece of like, it's great to do these baseline reports and important to do the annual reporting, but then starting to think about kind of like how might we do proportional improvements in our programming that also has a capacity component. The piece the reason I raised my hand was just wondering specifically about the opportunity to engage other staff from within our agencies, other subject matter experts that might have, particularly GIS or mapping expertise. So that may not be my area of expertise as our agency's designee, but we do have staff within our agency that are not here at the IAC level. That could be valuable, have, meaningful insight. Just curious if there's been thought around how to bring in agency department expertise on that particular deliverable.
For mapping, yeah, I would say that we're open to that. And again, the way that the RFPs are written is there's space for folks. So I think it really just comes down to what's best for you all. And once you start identifying who those subject matter experts would be or folks that you feel like should be involved, just let us know. But just know that it's all possible.
It just means it's different than IAC AC joint meetings where those conversations would happen, but actually, again, some sort of subgroup or task group where we might have some additional expertise and individuals that would participate in those calls or conversations with the contractors.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Yeah, definitely. So I see everyone's hands. I also want to make sure that we're giving space for advisory council members to ask questions as well, especially they may have some perspective or questions that pertain more to their side of things. So just wanted to share that. And then Carla, I see your hand.
I think this is actually responsive to Abby's and Janet's underlying inquiry regarding engagement and ability to inform and participate in the creation of the mapping tool itself. And one of the things that we will be doing is we will invite the contractors to a public meeting to have conversations with all of us. And not only that, but also there is a work plan that includes conversations outside the public setting just for efficiencies and continuity of operations and conversations that will take place with advisory council members and with IAC members. And the goal is that all of the resources that you're speaking to, Abby, that may exist within our agencies will be communicated and leveraged. This is really a collective endeavor. The agency is just the conduit. Our agency, the Agency of Natural Resources, is the conduit through which we capture, organize, and then have the conversations. But the intention is that this process will be informed by the engagement with the council, with the advisory council, and with other agencies. Ultimately, we will be utilizing this tool with the data that's inserted in it. So we must ensure that the data that gets incorporated actually gets us to where we need to be.
Thanks, Carla. I'm just going to hold some space here and see if anyone else has a question who hasn't shared yet. Okay. Any last questions before we move on? All right. Sounds good. Okay, so now we're going to move into your breakout groups. So I think we have 3 advisory council members on the call. Yeah, so we're going to meet separately. This is unstructured time. Thank you, Juliet, for the advisory council and interagency committee to separately advance the work of their body. We have some potential topics here, and we created this list based on conversations that you all have actually had, like questions and ideas. So some of the topics are, what are governance options that you'd like to work through? Do you want to have working groups? And then what does collaboration within your group look like? A lot of you have mentioned in the past that you really want to strengthen collaboration and coalition building. And I feel like there's been a lot of momentum actually the last few meetings around that. So that could be a topic. Legislative organizing, some folks have mentioned being interested in that. And then of course there are deliverables that you might want to talk through. Yeah, and then we have some reminders. I think is the next slide, Juliet. Or maybe outcomes first. Yeah, so the outcome is basically that both groups, you'll walk away with understanding maybe more about your structure, if you want to designate team leads, and then any needs that you might have. And then here are suggestions that we've shared before, just to be mindful of equity and airtime, embrace silence, be solutions focused where possible, action oriented, and identify clear next steps when possible. So those are our suggestions. And I think we're just going to we'll use the larger group here or the main room for the interagency committee, and then we'll create a small breakout group for the AC members. So just give me a moment to work on that.
Kim, I have a question. Are you, either of you from the EJ are going to join us, or this is going to be? Yes.
Yeah, one of us will join just so that we can record.
Yeah, and also just so that we look back to those to the outcomes that you mentioned, and to make sure that we know exactly what teams are we talking about and what. Yeah, just to make sure that if we have questions. Thanks.
Sure. Yeah, I'll be sure that we can, one of us will make sure it's in the chat for you as well. All right. So
also, I want to mention, Kim, before we break out for advisory council members, this is an opportunity also for you to have conversations regarding whatever needs to be discussed amongst yourselves, right? It's really not, we're not intending to prescribe what the conversation is going to look like, or what you're going to be talking about. An example is, for example, the governance document that was shared. If there's appetite to have that conversation, this will be an opportunity to do that and then bring that back to the interagency committee as sort of like a recommendation, or something to offer for further conversation. So this is really an opportunity to have conversations about the content that we provided, come up with questions, come back with that, or any other topic that you so desire to discuss.
Yeah. I think I saw someone else joined. I'm not sure who exactly, but I'm just going to keep chugging away at this. So
Yeah,
if
I
you want
think
to take
from
a break,
oh, sorry, I just want to say, I think from the advisory council, we've got Rich, Mariana, Brittany, and Jennifer.
oh, okay. All right.
Yep.
Yeah. If you all just want to take a couple minutes break, maybe walk around, do something, give yourself a break from the screen, and then I'll keep doing this. All right, everyone. I succeeded. There was a little bit of an issue. For some reason, I can't assign you Rich or Jennifer. I can't put you in another group. So I did it backwards. And so all the IAC members will go into a group and then the rest of us will stay in the main group. All right. Okay, I'm going to open up the rooms now. Let me know if there are any issues that come up. Okay. I think it worked. All right. So I'm only here just so, well, it doesn't even matter anymore because we're in the main thing and it's recorded. So I'm just going to put some of the outcomes in the chat for you, Mariana, and then I'll be off camera and not, essentially not here unless you need me for something.
Hola, buenos dias.
Hi, how are you?
I'm well. I'm
Where are you? Where are you geographically located?
oh, I'm down in Brattleboro.
Brattleboro. Okay.
Ontoxic. Yeah. We got about 6 to 8 inches of snow last night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same here, although it was during the day. I'm in Essex Junction.
Mm-hmm. Hello,
It's
Jennifer.
nice.
Hi there. It's good to see you all.
Hi, Jennifer. Where are you too?
I'm in Newbury.
Okay.
And today we just planted the rest of our like conservation district's trees into the nursery. So we're digging in the snow to get like
Oh,
all the baby trees back underground. It was definitely the last day to do it.
Oh,
So we'll have a lot more in the spring though, so it's great. We have like a huge um, just number of different types and many of them food bearing. So it's exciting.
nice.
were these like
Okay.
bare root
Mm-hmm.
stubs that you're healing
Yep.
in?
Basically, yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
cool.
Yeah. I can put um, I could put a link to the resource even because it's open for the spring as well.
Mm.
But there's a like a watershed distinction. So it has to be within the Connecticut watershed, basically. Yeah.
We
Yeah, I think it's
qualify down here.
yeah.
And they have to
I
have
saw
livestock. It's like for
yeah.
livestock.
I saw some information of your I think I have it somewhere around here, of your conservation district during the Farm to Play conference.
Oh, good.
And I talked to someone there, told them that I knew you.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah, there were two people there. It's great. I really like your flyer. It was very easy to read and I wondered if other conservation districts do the same type of outreach. It was just you guys there, I think.
Yeah, we're usually the only ones at that particular conference, but everybody is doing something different. Yeah, because it's regional, it's like watershed level, which is what's cool about it, is like it's geographic boundaries of
Uh,
an established, government.
yeah, it's great. It's
Cool.
really good.
And our mandate is like grow trees and put them into the community. So we're like, can they be trees with food on them? And it turns out, yes.
It's perfect. I really been thinking, I mean, I know this, I didn't want to go there because I know this meeting is not about that, but I've been thinking about you, particularly in the conservation districts, because we do have the food security networks that divide the state of Vermont in small networks of, in local networks of people that work around food access. And I thought, how interesting if we could combine the divisions and, aligning our food security networks with the conservation districts. Because in a way, we do have similar,
Mhm.
a similar, mission, which is to keep people well fed. I
Yeah.
mean, you guys have a different mission, but I mean, I'm sure that it
I
is
mean, at the
connected
heart
in
of
a
it,
way.
isn't it about like providing for all and thinking about like 50? So one of our top line missions, although we've always been focused since it was like established 85 years ago, focused on like natural resources divided up like in little pieces, like siloed, Um,
Yeah.
but they're not really thinking about like the end product of food and maybe I don't know, not by and large, but anyway, yeah, so for us, one of our top line missions basically is to provide for like think about like proteins, fats, and carbs, like how much could grow in a perennial food system with all these trees. We have the trees, the seedlings, and then you can build the system of gleaners and harvesters and that kind of thing. But that squarely falls within like conservation, like it's the human component of like it's not just good for wildlife, it's also good for people, and that's good too. We don't have to be
Right.
separated from the woods.
Absolutely. Yeah, totally. Totally. And we'll talk more about it at some other point, but we in the networks, we do have a lot of contacts with gleaners and with farmers and other different organizations working in food access. So it'll be nice to have a deeper conversation at some point. We could do that. Anyway, so we were supposed to be aware of the silence and I'm already here like blah, blah, blah. So zip it. Or at least let's talk about what are we supposed to be talking about. which is always very mysterious and surprising. I'm not sure. Maybe you want to bring about that document that you shared with us before, Jennifer, or Rich.
The
Do you have?
document.
Yeah,
No,
unless you have other ideas. I don't have any particular.
I don't either. I still literally spend every meeting trying to keep up.
Yes,
I feel like Jennifer's got a better handle on these things, having worked on some of these initiatives in the past and contributed
right.
to the formation of the law. But I'm still struggling. Obviously, we're still having a attendance issue too, so I don't think we're alone in this.
Yeah, totally.
And it's a holiday ish.
There were a lot of meetings suddenly. I wasn't anticipating this many.
Yeah.
Like right around this time of year.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
maybe we should do the circle at least to make sure everybody has equal. If people want to just check in and pass, what do you think we're supposed to talk about?
Yeah. Well, in my camera, there are just, besides the two of you that I can see you, there are two other people with the camera off. I think one is Kim, but the other person, I'm not sure if it's Abby or.
I think Brittany is here.
Oh, Brittany.
Watson.
Okay. Okay.
Yep.
And Brittany, if you want to kick off, if not, we could just start as ourselves and see if she's surface. Oh, there she is.
I'm sorry. What's the ask?
We're just making sure you're with us and
okay.
want to give you an opportunity to say something right now if you'd like. Reacting to what our charge is for this discussion group.
Oh, no, I'm good. I'm just listening.
Okay.
I could just briefly say that starting by sharing that I would love to, if we have a little bit of time, to review your government options, Jennifer. So if the three of us or the four of us can come to an agreement on one step toward that, that'll be wonderful. And also, I'm not sure what it means about the working groups. That means the subcommittees for the deliverables, like the community engagement subgroup. I don't know what it means, working groups. And then the legislative organizing, I don't know if that's something that, I think I remember that at some point, some of us said if we could go back to the legislature to advocate for either changes in the law or if that has to do with the redefinition. I know that the definition was something that you, Rich, brought up, the definition of environmental justice. I'm not sure what legislative organizing, it seems like a very general outcome. Not sure what, same with the deliverables. I'm not sure what we specifically, of all the things that we could be talking about, which of these could be about.
Kim,
and that's
Kim, do you want to add to that?
Sure, I can answer if you'd like me to. So legislative organizing, we're speaking to what you said, Mariana, that several folks expressed interest at different times throughout the year about wanting to explore potentially going back to the legislature or even, creating documents or letters coming from the advisory council. And so just offering that that's reflecting back that that's something we heard and something you all might be interested in discussing, even if just in an exploratory way, because it was brought up. And then deliverables, yeah, that was just like a general bullet. Sometimes folks have questions around particular deliverables or want to talk through them. Like I think in the past, Victor wanted to talk through, I forget which one. So that's just there as a reminder, but you can use this time for whatever whatever you'd like, and I'll just step back.
Thank you, Kim. So I see Jennifer put the doc in the chat that we looked at previously. I think there was some inclination to pursue this.
And I worry about anything being too complicated. Like nothing is the law, but it's just like what are the actual agreements and what I heard, I guess, from the reaction from ANR's point of view in terms of having to rotate people and not having them really understand what's going on can be a problem. So they want to have like fewer people who are serving as the quote unquote chair, but then that would require 1 or 2 or 3 advisory council members doing more. And yeah, so there's a lot of questions like that of like my question is sort of what are we trying to solve for? Like what's a functioning council look like? How would we like to see it? And then maybe work backwards from there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of experiences with councils, and I bet that there are a lot of models out there. So I think we should try to come up with whatever we think might be good for us. What I feel is like that we are not independent, or that we're very dependent on a train that is rolling, and we're riding on this train and we need to move forward because this is what the law says. So whereas a council seems like emerges from the relational experience of people, and then they start moving the train forward. But that's what in my mind, in my imagination, that's what a council is people that get together because they know each other, they trust each other, they have experiences together, and they create something out of that. For me, here is kind of the opposite. If there's something created and we are just a part that we've been told that we need to contribute to this part, this train, that's this thing that is moving. So that's why I feel that sometimes we're a little on the loose. And if we could take a little bit of ownership in some of this process, it could perhaps gives us a little bit more of I don't know, of maybe a feel of empowerment, or maybe a feel like we are less on the loose. But at the same time, there's the law that and the dates and all that structure that is around us. And I'm not sure how to, I don't know where I'm going. I can see myself rambling, so I'll stop.
I'm embracing the silence.
Totally. And one more thing that I could say is that for I participate in this space as part of my work. So I do have a set amount of time that I know that I am allocating for this work. And it doesn't matter to me if I am chairing a committee or I'm using it for a small group or for these joint meetings. If we decide that my energies, if we decide as a council, as a group, that I could use this time in a different way that we all decide, because it's needed by the group, I'm happy to do that. Like, for instance, when you said, Jennifer, a minute ago, it seems like there are concerns that we will be doing more work, because if we chair something, or if we, are developing agendas or whatever it is that we need to do, for me, if it's the same amount of time as sitting in meetings, I don't mind doing some other work. perhaps these long meetings could be shorter in a way to give us room for doing some other format or some other work. I don't know.
I understand that there's things that need to be done and deadlines to be met, but 3 hours is a long, long meeting for me.
Me too.
Um, it's a perpetual quandary here. There's things that have to be done, and there's some staff that's doing them, and then the rest of us are. Although I do say that I do observe that the agency committee members seem to understand what's going on, but then again, I don't know, it's within their body of experience or their wheelhouse, or I don't know what you call it. I don't even understand what some of the words are that get tossed around, the office jargon. I mean, I do, but they're just unfamiliar to me.
Yeah, when they are put together in a long presentation, my mind cannot follow. If I grab each word or if we stop in each thing, maybe I can, but yeah, I see what I mean.
Yeah. Could make random random observations all over the place, but it's interesting that when we're talking about something like environmental justice, which talks about real impacts to real people, it's not, it doesn't seem very real.
Totally. Jennifer, you've been from the very beginning and around this work. What were you envisioning, or what was the visions of the people who put together this law for this council?
I mean, yeah, I can speak for myself, but I feel like in terms of this council being able to do exactly what Rich just said, I'll have to like go back and remember how you said it. But really it's about like serving people. So like connecting resources to what people need, like in a more efficient way as a government, since like there's so many overlapping silos of resources and it makes everything more complicated. Kind of in terms of resource distribution, that more people would have access to resources. And the question is how, and it's like it's the interface between the government and the people and how they communicate. And through this advisory council for, it could be a way, just like the first meeting that we had of the advisory council where people showed up and like made public comment. And for several times they did, but there really was a number of them who had stories to tell. Like they were basically, it was like their last or maybe first like place that they could go to like kind of report like this is what's happening in my community, this is like on our street, like this is where we need help, like being able to direct to who needs, how do we prioritize like the funding that is available. Maybe there's more, maybe there's less, but there's money available and somehow it gets out the door to people. So how do you like, find the people that need the money, first of all, make sure they're through the process and have the applications. And that's the kind of stuff that we do with farmers, is like filling out their applications and stuff. And it's just, there's a process for everything. So it clogs the whole system when things are siloed. I could go on that ramble, but I guess for the purpose of this, like, I think it would be really good for us to at least have like an agreement that when we start, we go around the circle. Like we have to hear from each other somehow. And I think that's the only, just like thinking about this process proposal, it doesn't have to be as detailed. It's kind of like legally, like right now, which is kind of uncomfortable, but it's like if we could even break this down to like 3 bullet points, we could probably do that in a sense. Kind of knowing what it means and how we want to operate as a group. And also taking public comment, like actually encouraging people to like report stories. Like could be cataloging like qualitative stories and seeing where are the problems. I would love to have like a huge database of problems. I've shared my broken things list before. Like we have a spreadsheet, it's open to all to add to, but just things in the system that blockade, the kind of the flow of money and food and people.
Broken things list, huh? I see the message from Kim. We're getting called back in 6 minutes. Yeah. And thank you, Jennifer.
Just to I put it in the chat. I don't care who sees it. This is just how I catalog. It's kind of out of date, but it has nothing to do with this. But just to show that, like, I think that there are points where we can be gathering data to make fixes if we're speaking to more people and getting their input into decision making. And so that's where, like, the EJ map, really could be a tool to hear from people and for people to hear from their government about, like, there's, a permit that's available for public comment over here to maybe to expand a landfill or to do all number of things. There's permits, delivered every day, but do you know about them? And so that's kind of where this advisory council would, could help to sort of make sure that that's connecting to their communities and they have a way in to sort of report these complex problems that, and they need assistance, like technical assistance or financial assistance, both. And that's what the government's for.
That's quite a list. Wow. Imagine if everybody did this. Wow.
And then we could use AI to process it and it would take like a moment. We could actually make things better.
So when you mentioned a few minutes ago about, you said condensing this to 3 bullet points to pick a number. And when you were talking about this, are you talking about the governance document? Okay. Yeah, that might be certainly a place to start. Not sure we're going to do that right now. We got 3 minutes left. Welcome back.
Sorry. My computer decided to leave me before I could plug it in. Did I miss silence or did I miss conversation?
Jennifer had suggested that perhaps a place to start with this governance document would be to sort of extract, and she may be working on this at the moment, extract 3 major points just to make it a little more accessible and presentable.
Yeah, totally. That's a great idea. And sorry, Jennifer, that we kind of end up looking at you as a as a guidance person here. I hope we're not overburden you.
No, and it's like, however, I could be like assist, but just like use me where I'm needed. And then like that, I think that it could function as, you know, like more of like can like that each council member truly is a beacon, like a focal point, kind of like connector to a wide array of programs or services. I mean, information, like there's critical information, and that's what, the other side of it is like, with environmental justice is access to information and resources.
Yeah, when you just, I'll mention, Rich, do you want to say something? I tend to jump in, but
No,
please, I don't mind being stopped.
oh no, go
Um,
ahead.
Great. When Jennifer said, I'm just gonna close my door, not to bother my coworkers, but when Jennifer said that she wanted to be a big list of problems and so that we can start um trying to, yeah, listen to people, see what we can do. That make me think that um that is why I joined this. When I joined, I thought, yeah, we're going to be listening to people as a council and trying to tell them what to do somehow, even though I thought at the beginning I didn't think I had any experience to connect people with resources, but environmental justice resources. But I actually think that we have advanced a lot in our knowledge of some of the resources, or at least we have met some of the agency people that can connect people with resources. So I would love to just start by creating a space, kind of like not waiting until all these deliverables that sound so technical. It's almost like we have to prepare all these structures before actually listening to people and actually doing something for people, it feels to me. So I would love to have some time in our public meetings for invite people to come and say whatever it is that they are facing in their communities. And we could at least listen and try to yeah, to direct them to some of the resources that are already available, and walk the walk with them, as opposed to continue to work in all these deliverables that create this structure for later identify these people and these problems. And yeah, I feel like a part of me does not want to wait until that time. We could start doing things right now and have a little bit of our space to share with people, more intentional.
Are you guys good with me bringing everyone back? I don't want to cut you off if you have anything else you want to finish up.
I'm just putting the document in the chat with like 8 like bubble down, bullet points. And maybe like a next step would be like to make sure we have a consensus on the council around, a simplified process of how we meet together, and then at least we can move on from there. And I don't know, I think there's still that conversation about like this whole rotating chair thing. I think it would be lovely to be facilitated by a different person every time. Like, I don't think that that's a problem, and we're trying to keep up as best we can. So, yeah, I think.
Jennifer, looks like you need to add sharing privileges. Yeah, there it is. Key steps.
Okay, sounds good. I'm going to close the room.
All right.
Hello, everyone. Hope you all had a good conversation over there. Let's go ahead. There's no members of the public on the call right now. How would you all feel about taking like a 10-minute break? I don't know if folks want to eat food. Does that timing feel good? 10 minutes? Okay. Let's come back at 3:55.
I should have started the meeting by saying happy RTO week.
For you, Mariana, since you're not a state of Vermont employee, that's the return to office. I don't know if you know, the governor is having us work hybrid 3 days a week in office. So it's very exciting to say the least.
Is today the first day, the official first day?
December 1st was, so Monday
Monday.
of this week. Yeah.
I see. So now every state employee has to be in office 3 days a week.
I think
Or
there's
vice
some
versa.
exceptions depending on the type of employee, but not a lot. Yeah.
I see. Yeah, got you. Well, you'll have a lot of fun, more fun time though.
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe.
Some things are
Mariana, by
impacted.
the way, I love the color of your sweater. It's like a nice emerald.
Thank you. I don't even know where I got it from. That's my reality.
That's lucky though. You got lucky wherever it came from.
I am an awful recycler.
I believe we're at time to come back. Welcome back, folks. Juliet, would you like to take us to the next portion of the agenda while Kim comes back? Oh, there she is.
Hello, everyone. I think it makes sense to just kind of readjust. We have less AC folks on the call, and so I think it might actually make more sense for you all to share a debrief now of just what you all discussed, whatever you want to share. But I think most important would be any administrative next steps, like any decisions that were made, and then what steps each body needs to take to move forward. Jennifer?
Yeah. Hi. So I don't think any decisions were made per se. There's a document in the chat, but I guess I would wonder, the document is to basically simplify what we had before into a basic process. But I kind of wonder about, like, even when we come back together as like a interagency, maybe having a similar kind of circle process, because it's hard to know like who's to speak, and it could be quick, it could be brief, people can pass, but like yeah.
So what is the document that you put on the chat, Jennifer? What?
It was a simplification of the other kind of process. We're still trying to figure out like the process for like how we can all like be here and, serve this council.
So it's a governance structure for the AC? Because there's the
Yeah, and I guess what I'm requesting or like offering or like asking is like if one of the main things in this list is just like that we use a circle as a council, like at least once, maybe twice in the meeting, like begin the meeting, end the meeting, so that everybody at least has a chance and they can speak for as long as they want. They're members of the council and that's their time. And yeah, so I guess what I'm saying is it would be helpful to, in the interagency council relationship, to have a similar kind of thing.
Um, I think that, interagency committee members should weigh in here if they're interested in something like that. But I just wanted to offer, towards the end of this meeting, we'll talk a little bit about kind of how we're thinking about structuring next year and our meetings for next year. And part of that is thinking about, Jennifer, the proposal that you guys are talking about for, having rotating chairs for the advisory council. And I think, we could definitely incorporate something like that into any time where the advisory council is working with the interagency committee as well. It's definitely feasible.
Cool. And the documents, we were just trying to simplify them. That was part of the discussion when we were away.
Okay, anything that IC members want to share before we move on to all collectively working together?
I would like to, since the circle process was mentioned for the AC, perhaps we could start now, right? And we should do the circle process if that's okay with everyone. So Jennifer, are you complete with the updates? Okay. Who would like to go next from the advisory council?
I'll go ahead.
Great.
I don't have a lot to add. This is Rich. I think as several of us on the advisory council, and I want to raise again the fact that we still continue to have a hard time with attendance. It's hard to get folks to show up at these meetings, and so it's not a lot of us here, so we can only speak for ourselves. And I think that attendance might be a reflection of the fact that there's a lot going on. It's hard to follow, and these governance suggestions are an attempt to sort of bring some grounding from my rather plebeian position. I have no idea what's going on sometimes, and it's hard. So we're trying to. Yeah, my comment was that with environmental justice, as an idea, we're talking about real impacts on real people, and I think a lot of the folks who are impacted would have no idea what we're talking about here. It is what it is. Laws are like that. Governmental structures are like that. The disconnect is profound often. So that's it. Circles are great. So I'll step out of the circle now and turn it over to Mariana, perhaps.
Sure, thanks, Rich. I'll take the turn now. Yeah, and my hope is that we can try to break a little bit that structure that disconnects us so much and get somehow more connected. Let us be creative and hopeful, and within the structure, let's create something a little bit more flexible, like the bamboo, it's there. It can move with the wind, but it still's there. So I don't know. I'm trying to have a hopeful stance. And yeah, the circle is one, for instance. So I'm glad that we're starting this way, and yeah, and let us continue to bring ideas that make us feel less lost and more empowered and more connected to each other. And I pass it to Rebecca.
Hey, Rebecca, it sounds like your mic might not be working. We can't hear you. Sorry.
Sorry, I forget that I have to keep speaking specifically into this little thing here. Is this share circle for the AC members specifically or for all the members on this meeting?
All the members now.
Okay, I don't specifically have anything to add at this time. But I guess I should pass the circle along to another member. I can pass along to Abby.
Thanks, Rebecca. I too like this idea of kind of a circle space. My kind of reactions and reflections of right now are I feel very distracted by the deliverables as a covered agency. I wouldn't say that I feel very connected to the AC to you as AC members and other AC members that aren't here. We've carved out a little bit of time to connect with other covered agencies on specific tasks, which has been nice outside of joint meetings. But really, I feel like all of my EJ time is focused on our own agency's creation of documents and internal communication, and really needing to comply with the timelines and the tasks that have been outlined in Act 154. And it does sometimes feel like there's this race to just like stay on top of those deliverables, as opposed to that like back up and take that bigger look at what are we doing together? What was the original intent? How might this be implemented and change our culture or our actions? I'm happy to pass it to Jenny.
Abby, I find myself shaking or like not big head nods to everything you said about just being like I literally in another window right now have a very terrible draft of a baseline spending report because I'm like, well, we're thinking about it, we're talking about it. It's and I want to make sure that I and my organization are thinking about environmental justice not in terms of like you're saying like meet the deadline, check the box, but actually fundamentally engaging and evaluating the processes that we have and are getting credit for processes that we have and then improving them as well. So I don't have a great solution, but I feel very connected to my fellow IAC organizations and appreciate everybody and their insight. So I will pass this to Amy, if that's okay.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, I am so thrilled about just getting to see the process guide and the circle idea. Yeah, and Rich, I'm also thinking about what you said in terms of just like how confusing and complex and layered the state work is. And I feel that too. I'm like, what is going on? And part of it is because there is a lot, and part of it is because it feels disconnected to me. I'm not saying that's what you were saying, but when you were talking, I was like, So anyways, I'm reflecting on this, like how we be together, how we do the work feels so important. And so taking pause to connect and to get and everyone to have a minute to share feels really, really valuable and important. And I'm just so grateful for the AC members bringing this to us right now. Wants to go next? Oh, Dave, can I pass to you?
Thank you. Yeah. Everything that's been said resonates with me. definitely. I don't think I have anything more to add, but the kind of race to the next deliverable thing strikes a chord with me definitely. And it's not it's not that it's a purely technical exercise by a long stretch. I feel like connected to the work and thinking about the work with meaning and with heart and with appreciation for what we're trying to do. And it is, I think it's maybe a little indicative of just our greater work world and just world in general, of just like a little bit of overwhelm going on maybe on a personal level right now too. So there's a little bit of that. Like I want to have more bandwidth and time and less intensity around deadline for this work. And it's probably not going to happen by chance. So I'm just feeling like forging ahead, doing the best we can, and trying to, like Mariana said, kind of remain as kind of hopeful about chipping away at something that's big and kind of took a long time to kind of establish itself, trying to turn that back around, maybe bigger than I understood it to be when we first embarked. So thank you. Claire, can I pass it to you?
Yeah, thanks, Dave. I don't know that I have much to add. I think I really appreciate hearing everything that the AC members have reflected, and just resonate very deeply with everything the IAC members have stated. I think I feel very similarly. It's almost like I understand the specific tasks that are being asked of me and their deadline, but it, even with that general understanding, often feels quite overwhelming to actually situate myself in. So yeah, I will just say +1 to everything that the other IAC members have reflected about how doing this work right now feels. And I will pass it to Bob.
Yeah, the benefit of going after everybody else is they pretty much have captured all the sentiments I have, so I have nothing of value to say. So go ahead, Sarah.
I will cede to Carla to make sure all the IAC folks get to speak, because Abby technically speaks for Agency of Ag. But thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Sarah. I would like to take the time to say that I understand, how challenging the implementation of this law is. It is very challenging for our little unit to juggle all of the deliverables and try to, with a lot of heart, show up to the meetings and just communicate the best we can what was given to us, handed down to us in the best way possible. As a member of the Interagency Committee, I do also have to say that I would love to feel a lot more connected to the Advisory Council. And it is very difficult to do that when I don't have the opportunity to engage with you on a regular basis. I recognize that there are a lot of things that impact our ability to show up or not. As I was sharing with Kim and Juliet, I am like, I am in this period right now, like surrounded by context, and I cannot just like leave things behind and not be there as well, like in my personal life. So I do understand how difficult it is sometimes when one is like juggling 1,000 things, and then this is another thing that is very complex and feels disjointed and feels like handed down and not meaningful, perhaps. But the purpose is actually the complete opposite, right? I would like to offer as an option for folks to feel less, and I wrote it down, an idea to help folks feel less lost, is to schedule time with us, with Kim, with Juliet, with me, individually, collectively, to just talk about the law, talk about the deliverables, and engage with what we're wrestling with. It is very real. The overwhelm is very real. It's felt. I feel it to my core. This task of just keeping things from not collapsing feels very daunting. And I feel that the interagency committee has a real shared understanding of that struggle because we feel it every day. We are very passionate about the work. I am very passionate at the work, so I'm going to speak about myself, but I know this from having conversations with others here. And I want to do more. I want to engage more. I want to work with you all more. I am open always to exploring ways in which we can do this together. And I would really like to feel an allyship between advisory council members and the interagency committee members. And I think we can work more on that. But an important step is to show up, whichever way. It doesn't really matter, but just to show up somehow, the best way that is possible. And yeah, we'll take it from there. So just offering, reach out, schedule meetings. We meet with some advisory council members regularly. And we're happy to do that anytime.
I just wanted to jump in and say, I think this is really relevant to, I'm hearing everyone say that they want to be more connected across the two bodies. And I was wondering, Sarah, if you would be willing, I don't want to put you on the spot, but last time that Sarah joined a public meeting last month, Sarah and Ricarda very kindly, Ricarda is from the Department of Public Service, very kindly offered to help us pick up that buddy system conversation that we've been having. They also renamed it to something very relevant. So I don't know, maybe pass it to Sarah to talk a little bit about like how we could maybe get that system up and running so people feel like they have an ally, a friend on the other side of the aisle. Not that we're on opposite sides of the aisle, but you know what I mean. Sarah, is that something you'd be willing to talk about a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. I'm gonna pull up Ricarda's email so that I can talk more accurately about this. So after the last joint meeting, Ricarda, who works with Claire, and I both offered capacity as like non-IAC members, but working with government agencies to take on coordination of the idea of a buddy system. It was actually Ricarda's idea, so I will take no credit for it, to change the name to be from Adrienne Marie Brown's Emergent Strategy, which is Working on Excellence Partners, or WOES, WOE as an acronym. And I can put some language around that as its own framework in the chat. But she and I have created some draft language and have an updated very simple form for the AC members to kind of get an idea of who's interested in this optional way to engage with the IAC, and then just kind of understanding capacity availability. And then we're hopefully going to start working to pair up some IAC members with AC members, and then have more of a structured to kind of support that relationship, which could be like sharing prompts with each pair, or kind of asking each pair to figure out how they want to structure their space and focus, like what they want to focus on in that relationship. And so we're hoping to start testing it out soon with ample space for feedback from both IAC members and AC members. That's the update. I'll put some of the language from Emergent Strategy in the chat as well.
Thanks, Sarah. You're awesome.
Did everyone go in the circle? Anyone missing?
Well, if you and I don't know if you and Juliet wanted to do a reflection, you're more than welcome.
Thank you, Mariana. Yeah, just listening very intently. Yeah, I hear you all. I share some of the same feelings. I think if we're all describing feeling overwhelmed and we're all wanting to also feel, it sounds like, more connected, I think it could be helpful to think about what collective care looks like in this space, and maybe in the context of your new system where you're going to be pairing folks up, maybe that could be also a great space for you all to talk more specifically about, like, maybe with your pair, figuring out what it looks like. How do you lean on each other when you feel overwhelmed? Because I think truly some of these things could be improved by just putting yourself out there a little bit more, and also trying to build and invest really into the relationship building piece of this. We can definitely try to support by creating more time and space for this. And I think the circle process was really helpful because, like in this meeting, because we've already kind of started talking about what it could look like to collaborate more. And so, yeah, those are my thoughts right now. Yeah, and I think just one other thing about the feeling lost, I would love to know more, because I think some of us have named that part of the feeling lost just comes from everything that we're all managing as people, as individuals, as professionals, and then we have this law that we're navigating together. But yeah, just wanting to know more about what we can do. Because of course, like, we want to provide information and make sure that we do presentations every now and then. But if that's what's making you feel lost, what else can we do? Or is it just feeling lost because it feels like there's so much going on? No need to answer those questions, but those are my reflections.
I don't really have anything additional to share. I'm just processing, and honestly, I will share this. I'm just going to be vulnerable. I am kind of feeling really sad that everyone is kind of in this like solemn space right now. I would love for us to get to a point where like we all feel comfortable enough that we can like sit not just in the things that aren't working, but also sit with the things that are working. Because I think that we've honestly achieved a lot this year, and I don't want to end the year on a note where we don't take a moment to pat ourselves on the back for that. Because I think as much as there's a lot to improve on, you guys have also worked your tails off this year, like genuinely, in the face of a lot of really awful things that are happening outside of this space. And you have every right to acknowledge that just as much as the things that need to improve too. You guys are awesome people. So sit with that.
Yep, definitely. Are there any other thoughts around collaboration? Do you all feel like you want to utilize the circle process to explore what your relationship could look like? Is that something that folks still have the energy to do? This would have been your unstructured time, so I just want to really defer to where you all are at. So I think our team can just step back for a second and then you all can decide what feels good for you. The meeting ends at 5. We can end earlier if that's what folks want to do. Our team just has a couple of updates that we do need to take about 5 minutes to share. So give you space for a sec.
I think you can go ahead, Jennifer. Is it open time to chat?
Oh, okay.
I think so.
This is your time. Yep, this is your time.
Just wondering about, like, for the advisory council members who receive payment, because there were like many rapper I'm sorry, I got a little toddler around me. But what I'm asking about is, because there wasn't quorum in this meeting, like, do the advisory council members who come receive a stipend for those meetings? I think we asked that and we're gonna get to the bottom of it maybe before, but kind of wondering about that specific scenario.
Sorry, I'm just gonna jump in. Carla, correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that yes, you would still receive a stipend for this at the same hourly rate that you would for your work outside of public meeting or within public meeting. I know that if there's quorum, you get paid like a full 8 hours or something to that effect, but yes, you would still get paid the stipend regardless of quorum.
I know I don't think I've done that in a very long time, but I would just wonder if other people are actually doing that and getting paid and what the rate is. That's all taken care of.
So the rate is $50 per 8 hours of work, which I think shakes out to like $6.25 per hour. I will withhold commentary on that and the quality of that. I'll stop talking. But yeah, it's about $6.25 per hour. There are folks who submit expense forms. If you're interested in submitting an expense form and getting compensated for this work, it's all on our public meeting or our public website, the resource library. We can send that information to you if you're interested in filling out an expense form and getting it fulfilled.
Right. And then I imagine there's like an upper limit. I mean, we can't always be charging time that we spend on this.
I'm not aware of an upper limit. I'm not aware of an upper limit.
There must be some kind of budgetary constraint.
I think that's part of the purpose of the meeting cap. The meeting cap is in part a financial consideration for
Right, but I'm talking about the outside hourly rate. You're saying that anything we do outside of like 8 hours, we get paid in these public meetings, we get paid an hourly rate of like $6 or so, and something to that effect, and that we could charge those hourly times. I'm just trying to understand, because I know I don't understand. I wonder if other advisory council members. There was a lot of meetings this month even, which was sort of unexpected, I think, for many.
Carla, do you want to jump in? I saw you had Mariana, you may have something to add to that question.
Right, I can share quickly what I've been doing, and I thought that I was going to do the same thing. At the end of the month, I fill out the form, and I think when it's a scheduled meeting, it's $50, and I then add up the hours that it takes me to work outside the meetings, like in reading emails, reading materials, and I calculate it based on more or less the time that it takes me, and I put $6.25. The monthly checks comes to like $75, $90 sometimes, depending if I mean, I guess this month there's 2 meetings, so I guess that will be 100 at least, plus whatever hours I usually put hours for emails and readings, and make those lines. I thought that everybody was doing the same, but if not, and if I should do something different, please let me know.
You're
And I'm
following
happy
the
to
rules exactly right, Mariana, and you don't have to change anything.
Cool.
That's
And
right.
I
For
can help
public meetings,
Jennifer
it's $50, and for anything outside of public meeting, like if you had to prep for an hour, or if you're involved in a selection committee like Mariana is, then you also would put in the individual hours, which gets paid at the same rate as the 8-hour public meeting rate.
And my question is, like, to infinity and beyond? Like, what's the end point? How much time can each person do?
Well,
None
if
of
you
us are from
work
the
in-
business office, so we don't have the answer to that question, but my understanding is we haven't gotten to a point where anyone's like edging towards a meeting or towards a cap in terms of how much they're charging the state, so it hasn't really come up.
I've been, so that you have a sense of what I've been doing. I put like 2 to 3 hours for communication purposes and 2 to 3 hours for reading materials, something like that. I don't remember what I've done every month, but I look back in my calendar, and if there's a crazy number of emails, I put 2 hours. If just 1 or 2 emails, I put 1 hour. I guess it's a little bit of a guesstimation.
Okay, well, if it's not being, the budget cap's not being reached, that could be something that, like, for advisory councils to know, kind of just a heads up that, like, there's more opportunity to do more and be paid. Other advisory council members, just to be like, hey, if you put in the hours, that this is, and I'm sure there's some kind of deadline of when the money should be spent, thinking ahead. Because I know some might choose not to take the stipend. Like me, I'm already paid, so it's best for the stipend to go somewhere.
Well, I bring my stipend to, it's kind of like bring back to my organization for the hours that they already paid me. So that's what I've been doing so far. And I wouldn't have too many more hours than what I already contribute. But I don't know what's your, do you have a situation that you're concerned about, or?
Well, this is one of the things where I'm not keeping up very well. I haven't billed at all. And I should probably do that, because I think, similar to you, I would take those funds around and apply them to funding my ability to be here, because I'm responsible for raising my own funds, and I'm not. Because it's a lot to keep up with. So
If I
thank you
may
for
offer, Rich, something we've done in the past for other council members is we would fill out their reimbursement forms because they had some sort of constraint. So that is something that we're more than happy to do. And with regards to the cap in terms of hours, Jennifer, we have not reached that limit yet. But if you're thinking perhaps that this will apply to you or someone else, if you could provide the question and how many hours it is that you're thinking of billing that may seem excessive to you, I can actually, touch base with our staff people, with our business office folks, and see whether there is a cap. I don't think in statute there is a limit. And our budget is not split like that. So the encouragement is for advisory council members to bill the time that they work on. And the commitment is that we will pay that. If there is an issue with our ability to pay that, I would have been made aware of, but up to this point, we have not had that issue. But again, if you envision this being an issue for you, please let me know and I'll make sure to have answers for you before you actually do the work that, you say like infinity and beyond that you may think may not be covered. Because this is really important for us, is compensation, and the compensation is inadequate, so we don't want to underpay for services that are for actions that are actually for time that is actually invested in advancing the implementation of this law. So this is very important for us.
Could I just super clarifying question in terms of billing? So if there's not a quorum, and I know it's annoying to have to like think down to this level, but I'm just to be clear, like if there isn't a quorum and this doesn't count as an advisory council meeting, then we would get paid the lesser rate, or like we would charge it differently, right? Like it would count as a different thing, or is this just going to be a meeting?
I don't know
Maybe,
the answer to that question.
yeah, I don't know for sure either, and maybe I'm wrong, and I'll take responsibility if I'm wrong, but I am just gonna say that in the past, we've had difficulty reaching quorum, and I would say you should still charge it as a public meeting. Maybe that's a personal perspective, maybe I'm wrong, but that's what I think would be the appropriate thing to do.
That's what we've been doing. And now that you're raising the question, perhaps we will do differently. But I would not want to do that. As I mentioned already, the per diem is very inadequate. So I would like to continue compensating for labor at the highest rate. It may be the case that technically a lower rate should be provided. It may be the case, but because we've decided to not do that, this is something that we have not really looked into. But if there is interest and there are reasons to do that, I don't really see them because we usually don't have problems with how many hours advisory council members are contributing. We will continue to incentivize folks to contribute to the work that they can, and we will continue paying at the rate that we are currently paying. I will investigate whether the actual rate, if there's no quorum, therefore not a meeting for advisory council members, is less. And then I will receive guidance on whether that means that then we should be paying less. But again, I don't see the benefit of doing that because that's not what we've been doing. But the regulations are the regulations and the laws are the laws. So if that's the interest, then we may end up having to do that.
Okay, are there any other questions on this? I know we wanted to kind of use this time for some relationship building. Maybe we can do that next meeting. I think we can share. I'm going to turn my camera on, but I might look weird because this room is extremely dark. Yes, so just honoring where we all are at. our team will share our quick update in the follow-up email. And if anyone else doesn't have anything else to share, I think we can end a little early. Carla, does that sound good to you? Do you have anything else? Like I said, I think we should do our update via email, but just leaving it to you if you have any last thoughts.
As usual, a lot of gratitude to you all for showing up, even when things are hard and you may be feeling lost. I imagine how difficult that may be, and I do appreciate the commitment to the work and the ability to just stick with it. And again, I would like to encourage you all to reach out. What I think I'll do is I will send all of advisory council members an email and ask whether, you know, you would like to meet with me to talk about the law, the implementation, the goals, the way that, you know, we've been doing this work and envision doing it next year. But, you know, from a human to other humans, please reach out. Like, I care about you all. And like I said, the more we are working together to achieve the goals of what this law intends to achieve, the better off we're all gonna be. So that's all I have. There's an update regarding scheduling for next year that I thought was very important to get your reflections on. And I, you know, email may not be the best because if you reply, then, you know, the whole quorum and all of it. But
we can talk about it during the next meeting next week too. Yeah.
I think we can wrap it up here. I do have to say that I am just not feeling prepared to just talk business like that.
Yes, exactly. Okay. Well, thank you all. We will see you next week. Take care. Take good care of yourselves. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.